Hey, you are listening to Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host Mark.
And I'm your co-host Josh, and we are continuing on with Lovecraft July,
Yeah, we checked out Dunwich-horror, and it's crazy.
which is a very this is a very like midnight type movie that was made in 1970. Like I'd never heard of this movie before Arrow re-released it earlier this year. But we are joined by a cinephile because I feel like a movie like this that is such a deep cut Lovecraft story, you need a cinephile to appreciate this. We are joined by Mr. Miggs from Movies with Migs. How are you doing tonight?
What's going on, gentlemen? I'm good. Appreciate y'all having me on your podcast. And yeah, definitely a interesting movie. I this was my first time with it this morning too, and it was. I feel like I just went to X Fest up at the Colonial up in Phoenixville. I feel like this movie could make one of those X Fest showings, or even one of the Horrorthon showings. Most definitely one of those weird, obscure movies. Because, like I said, I'd never heard anything about it. I was just like, wow, okay, it was cool.
But then when you see the cast of the movie as well from that time period, it had some fairly big name people.
It did, which is like very surprising to me because I was like so when I reached out to like Miggs about being on the show, he was like, I've never heard of this movie whatsoever. And I was like, join the club 100%. This is my co-host.
So funny
Recommendation.
story. Arrow put this out for free release or whatever, reservations back before Christmas. And I reserved a copy. And long story short, I ended up with the second copy for free, which I'm not getting into details about that because it makes me look dumb. But I gave the second copy to Josh. And then we were talking about ideas for upcoming episodes. Like, dude, why don't we do a Lovecraft month? Have you watched Dunwich-horror yet that I gave you? He's like, no, not yet. I was like, well, I guess it's time. And his description, the easiest way, and it made perfect sense, was I get a text from him. He's like, this is like A24 before A24 ever existed.
That's interesting. I could get
Like
with that. I kind of felt like it had kind of a William Castle kind of feel. Those old horror movies are like the Hammer films. Maybe a little less dramatic than Hammer films, but it kind of that the atmospheric and the music kind of made me feel like that. It wasn't. I don't know. This one didn't. Well, I won't get into it fully right there because we just started. But this one, yeah, there was something about it that it didn't go over with me. I didn't hate it. It was just something about this one. I was just kind of like, all right, I don't know. Maybe I thought a little more was going to happen.
yeah, I agree with that. I like didn't know what to expect, but like as the more that this movie went on, I was like, especially like just having done Evil Dead April, this movie feels like a reverse Evil Dead to where like they're not trying to quite get the that they're trying to like discontinue the effects of the Necronomicon, where then you have like Wilbur in this movie that's like, I need to open up the Necronomicon and do some witchcraft stuff and be cool. And oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to seduce this lady with my porno mustache. Let me just start off by saying it was really hard to take him menacing with that mustache.
Hey, look,
The times
the
were
shots where he
everything.
gets, yeah, the shots of him just staring into the camera with the mustache. That was I was
I
like, I guess
did
it's supposed to be alluring. I don't know.
I did kind of feel like Sandra Dee was like way out of his league.
She's pretty hot. I didn't I knew her kind of, but she was pretty hot in the movie. That was her and her. I mean, her friend was pretty hot too. Even old Adrian in there. I was like, is that
Yeah.
Adrian? I was like, oh, that's Adrian. She was looking. You're looking pretty good. That's to say that's like that, and that was the thing too. Kind of like I said, talking about like the Hammer films or like the William Castle film, because that was like a feature of those too. They always had like good looking women. It didn't matter what was going on. It was like these women are ridiculously good looking, and they probably wouldn't be in these situations like this for real. But okay, we'll go with it.
So are we getting into spoilers now, or
All right, before we get there, I wanna back up a little bit. We just kind of jumped into this, and I think it's because we're all excited we're here to talk about Lovecraft. But Migs, we typically open up the show talking about projects that our guests are in, and you have one of the most interesting Facebook pages. I know your stuff because my buddy Kevin Burnham, the Dapper Man, turned me onto your page. I won a Scream 2 giveaway from you last year.
Awesome.
Kind of just walk us through kind of what movies with Migs is all about.
So I've always been a big fan of movies, cinema, just everything surrounding it since very early age. I've been in the theater probably since I was 4 years old and haven't stopped really. So I would say maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, I just kind of on my own personal page just kind of started posting little short reviews whenever I would see movies because I go to movies a lot and people would ask me all the time. So rather than just having individuals come at me, I'd say, okay, well let me post something and maybe I can pick up this way and more people will start looking at it and things like that. So I started just kind of posting little reviews that way. It started picking up, and then I said, okay, well maybe I can get a dedicated page going for this, just specifically for this. I got a lot of movies. I can post different content, make it interesting, things like that. So I started the page 2018. First year, it was a little bit, mostly just friends on the page, of course, but I started doing a little bit of advertising here and there. But then a buddy of mine who I grew up with in North Carolina, he came to me and he said, "Hey, I know a guy that's he's got like a media entertainment group that he put together with a few of his friends, and they're looking for different content. They got sports content on there, they got relationship content, they got other things on there. They're looking to branch out. Would you be willing to do your movie stuff with them?" So I talked to the guy who ran it, and he said, "Yeah, man, you can, I'll give you free range. We're not going to tell you what to post. You post whatever you want. We'll just give you access to post on the web page." So I got connected with them. So I'm affiliated with Defy Life Entertainment. I haven't posted anything written on their site for a while. I actually, since the beginning of this year, I've been bad about that. But I got to get my computer stuff set back up. If you look on some of my previous posts, all my longer reviews were normally linked to their web page. Like you said, I haven't posted any of those in a long. I think my last actual like written review that I posted from their site was Megan, and that was from like earlier this year. But I'm gonna get back into that. I just got to get my computer and stuff set up. But all about movies. I daily movies. I do reviews, recommendations. I'm gonna start getting more into actually like reviewing different formats and things like that. I kind of do that a little bit. I got a giveaway coming up. So yeah, I appreciate you being on the page, and shout out to the Dapper Man, Kevin. That's my guy on there. I know he does the big movie stuff too. I think he's actually getting into like production and like filming and stuff like that. So shout out to him, man. I see you out there. You're doing big things. So ain't mad at that at all. And yeah, just like I said, I'm a big film buff guy. Anybody that's interested in film, involved in film, I like talking to them. I like just having random discussions. I mean, I just had a random discussion with some guy at the gas station because I had on an X-Men shirt. We started talking about X-Men, so stuff like that, man. I'm good with it. If you can talk movies, I'm with you. Let's talk.
I get
This
those kind
is
of conversations going out sometimes in some of my horror t-shirts.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, it's great. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, those like novelty shirts always strike up conversations. It seems somebody says something they're like, "Oh man, you know about this?" or "Oh man, where'd you get that shirt from? That's cool." And it's like, yeah, man, I dig it.
Yeah. I anytime I wear anything Hellraiser, I typically get a lot of content, like a lot of conversations off that. People always
Mm,
like, where'd you get this from? And I'm always like, this place and this place.
yeah, man.
Support local businesses. But uh Kevin has actually moved into production, and I can neither confirm nor deny that I've seen his short film debut because of the film festival that we run here. But if you want to submit, if you're a filmmaker, it's for filmfreeway.com/, horrific hope film festival. Uh, my
Nice.
my my next question is like, what's the process like for you for like planning out like your day? Just like you're just like, I feel like I'm just gonna watch like Jackie Brown, and then I'm gonna jump into Bill and Ted. Like, what's kind of like what's the what's the
Yeah,
process?
I got a little process. So I mean, some stuff random, or if I haven't watched something in a while, I'm normally good for anniversaries, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, stuff like that. There's a couple of sites. What's the one site? Like Famous Birthday will kind of tell you like the on this day kind of stuff. So like things that have came out like for today, like you could look today, see what came out in January or July 3rd throughout the years, that kind of thing. By the Numbers is another good site that has like the whole movie archive of like every year. So everything major that's came out in a particular year, you can look at there, you can see information on it, box office numbers, that kind of stuff. So I kind of use those sites. So it just depends. What? Oh, yeah, yeah. I just watched that though. Sorry. So that's my lovely editor Gina over there. Say hi. Say hi to that guy. So yeah, like there's different movie birthdays. Like Terminator was one today. What else did I watch? I watched something after I watched Dunwich. What was it? I can't even remember now. Spider-Man. Oh yeah, Spider-Man. Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man came out today in 2012. So I watched that, and I hadn't watched that in a while. So yeah, it just depends. I mean, I do random stuff. Like I said, I do anniversary stuff, or I just started I just started revisiting Mission Impossible. I'm going to a screening of Red Dead Reckoning on Thursday, so I'm just trying to just kind of hit them all before that date, just to have a little refresher in my head. So like I said, stuff like that. Normally if something's coming out in the theater, like the Indiana Jones coming out. Now I've recently kind of watched those, so I didn't really watch them. But Gina never saw Kingdom of Crystal Skull, so we just watched that one the other day. So now we're gonna go see the new one, maybe sometime this week. So yeah, I mean it's a process, even though it's kind of random, just depending on what day it is. But there's always some method behind the madness.
That's dope. I feel like I never have like a rhyme or reason for things that I want to do or watch, like unless like I'm doing something for our podcast or like I'm going through a franchise. Like typically I'm just like, I haven't seen X in a long time, or I need to
Right.
rewatch Pearl, or uh I want to watch Mark's favorite movie, Megan, again.
Oh
Uh
God.
Was that sarcasm in there? I
I
hope
did,
so.
I did not like Megan at all.
Okay. I was getting ready to say. I mean, it was a cool movie, but goodness gracious, if that's anybody's favorite movie, I'd be questioning that.
I disliked it bad enough. I didn't bother to try to watch the unrated version on Peacock.
It wasn't bad. I felt like with that movie. So I went to an early screening of that, and the screening was the PG-13 version, it was fine. But then when I saw the rated R version, I said, okay, with that movie, I think a perfect blend would have been the extra gore in the rated R, and just put that with the PG-13, because like the F bombs in the rated R, I felt like they weren't necessary, and that's kind of what it was the F bombs, and then a couple of the scenes were a little bit bloodier, which made it rated R. But I felt like all the extra cursing and all that just it felt kind of lame. I was like, all right, you didn't really need this. Like this movie could have been rated R without the cursing, and then just kept the gore and stuff like that. So it
Yeah.
wasn't. I think it was bad.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that too. I was a big fan of The Expanse and the couple seasons that Amazon did after they took it from Sci-Fi. They had a couple of the characters just like turn into sailors with the way they were cussing about everything. I was like, that doesn't fit the character at all.
Right. Yeah. See, and that's what it was kind of like that in Megan too. It was like, all right, you guys, okay, I get it. The F bombs are because it's rated R, but Jesus, I just felt like they weren't needed. It's like, stop trying to be cool.
We got to make it
I
edgy.
would rather have rated R with violence and blood and gore that fits than rated R for language because they felt it needed it.
Exactly. Yep. Spot on with that. Fully
Well,
agree.
Megan will
Yeah.
never take the place of Chucky, so there's that.
And it's funny that you mentioned that too, because I felt like Megan was pretty much the exact same thing as the Chucky remake. Uh-oh, busting out the Chuck doll.
Chuck.
What'd y'all think of the remake? Did you like the Child's Play remake?
I haven't seen it actually. I had no
No.
desire to watch it.
Okay.
I like it. I think it's different. I don't really have a Child's Play or any Chucky movie or any of the TV series that I don't like.
Okay.
Uh, but I liked how different it was. I liked Mark Hamill's take on it. It's a controversial take, but me and Andy from Love What I Love both really liked it. So
Yeah,
how about you?
I didn't mind it at all. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I liked the whole AI aspect and all that, and that I thought that was a little different take, and it was cool. I mean, like I said, it doesn't replace the original, but they can coexist and be fine.
I
Well,
mean,
let's
if I wanted killer AI, I would go and watch something like Virus.
or Megan
Eh,
or
virus,
Smart House.
virus is okay, but I don't know. Virus is kind of cheesy. I don't know. I'd watch the Child's Play
They're all
remake
kind of
over
cheesy.
Virus.
They're all kind of cheesy when you get into killer
Yeah,
AI.
you're right about that. Yeah, but I don't know. Virus just, I mean, oh, no,
Vi-
it's got a way in
Virus
there.
had
So.
the addition of body horror in it too.
True. Right. Yeah. I mean, and Virus had some big names. I was actually kind of surprised at some of those names that did that movie, and then it didn't really take off. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But my man,
much
Chucky up in
much
there.
much like other buried treasure like Virus, let's jump into Dunwich Horror. Uh Mark, this is
I'm trying to figure out your thoughts on this because you
so
haven't been clear.
my thoughts are I did not love this movie and I did not hate this movie. I think it stands really well as like I could see this definitely being like inspiration for um like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell coming into Evil Dead. Probably going to compare this to a lot of Evil Dead throughout the course of this, just because of there's so many similarities in this movie. Um, I I overall like I thought it was pretty solid. Like it's not one of my favorite Lovecraft interpretations, but I liked it more than Reanimator. I will say that.
What? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
he wasn't a fan of Reanimator, and
I was
Wow.
not. Go check out our Reanimator episode and yeah,
We have to listen to it.
it was okay. But
Reanimator's a classic though.
I
I
feel
just
like I feel like in terms of like mental health conversation and like the like why we do this podcast, like this movie is a lot more deeper than Reanimator. So I feel like it also welcomes a lot more conversation than just like this is a cult classic and this is why. So overall, like I thought it was a pretty solid like little thing. I did not read the Dunwich horror story before this podcast. I have failed all of my goals for this month that I set for myself last week. But overall, like I thought it was good. I really thought it was like really trippy. I liked the vibrance of it, the visuals of it. Like I wish they would have paid off a little bit more, but I enjoyed seeing them. This movie's like absolutely gorgeous from like a technical standpoint.
It's a movie that for when it was made in the 70s, they did a really good job with it and kind of set some solid foundation for things like Evil Dead that came later and other similar kind of movies. I think they even talk about that Evil Dead was inspired by the works of Lovecraft and the Necronomicon, but it also, I think, had enough of a solid platform to it where if they wanted to do a remake, they could do an amazing one with today's abilities they have in filmmaking.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
Yeah,
Also, really,
liked it.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mix.
Oh no, I was gonna say. So yeah, I think I agree with both of you guys' points. Because I put this movie on. It was about 6 a.m. I started watching it, and I was laid out on the couch, not in a great position for movie watching. So I ended up dozing off, and I had to circle back. So I fell asleep. I fell asleep at the part, like right before the part where the uncle falls down the stairs. So I had to go back because
Balls.
I had to go back to that part. But yeah, yeah, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. And I think it does look good for a 70s film, and some of the little special effects that they did, and the trippy stuff and the psychedelic stuff was cool, but I didn't some of the story, I think they just kind of left some stuff. Like I'm still questioning what happened with the you know what. Like, did something happen there, or kind of a weird scene towards the end there? Like, okay, what? All right, did he leave? Did he?
All
I
right,
mean, it
all
was a
right.
nice shot of the lake with the water blowing. That was cool.
So, this is the way that I interpreted this ending. Is it exists in the same universe as Evil Dead, and Ash just happens to be the Antichrist. Boom.
Oh,
Okay.
Lord. I took it as they were just showing it's a cycle. Um, Lovecraft has a tendency to write most of his stuff about insanity and how fragile sanity really is and things like that. And it's a cycle of crazy. You had the original mother, which I'm probably going to get into spoilers now, if that's cool with you,
Yeah,
Josh.
yeah. Jump into it.
Okay, cool. So you had the original mother at the opening of the movie giving birth. You don't find out the full story until later, but it drove her insane.
Right.
So then you have all the insanity of the movie going on up until the end, and it ends with the Dunwich-horror kind of exploding and going away, where Wilbur was kind of overpowered by Armitage, and Sandra Dee starts walking away, being shown that she's pregnant, starting the cycle all over again.
Right. Right.
So it's a cycle of insanity.
It is, but I want to approach this from a different perspective. So, I have I had blah 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 blah.
You okay?
Yeah, I once heard a biblical Bible theologian talk about specifically the Antichrist, And in the Bible, it talks about how like no one knows like the hour of the day that Christ will return. So like there are scholars and theologians out there that believe that every generation has had their own version of the Antichrist, like Stalin, Hitler, so on and so forth, because like again, going back to no one knowing that the time or day. So kind of taking that perspective into Dunwich, I think it's also pretty interesting to like note that like they're essentially trying to like bring the devil into this world. And so you could
Right.
also argue that from like
Hmm.
from a theological standpoint that like you could bring that back in. I
From a
think it's a stretch,
from a
but
theological standpoint, anything that isn't Jesus is the devil, and in this case, that's not true. Simply because it's one of the great ones, one of the elder gods, and
yeah,
it's a whole mythology created by Lovecraft. Was it Nug-Sagoth? I think is the one he's trying to summon in
yeah,
Dunwich Horror. So there's and Cthulhu is like the most famous of the bunch. Everybody knows Cthulhu, but there's a whole pantheon of elder gods and deep ones and things like that. And
see,
it's a whole mythology that if you try to apply Christian logic to it, it doesn't quite work.
see, all right. So from that perspective, like I don't know any of that stuff. So like I've stressed this that like I know very little when it comes to Lovecraft. Like I've seen like a select handful of his movie adaptations, read a select handful of like his stuff. So like I don't know like older gods and like older ones and stuff like that. Um, but they like that knowledge like enhances the viewing experience, and it's a lot like when I've also never read Dune. So like when Ham and I came out of Dune, he was like, "Did you understand anything?" And I was like, "No." We spent the entire car ride home like him giving me like the history, the lore, like the mythos and kind of like the politics of how that movie is like how the movie like embraced like the book and like how you had to essentially know like X, Y, or Z about like the political parties, like the importance of spice. And that's kind of almost the way that you're explaining it. That's almost what it seems like. You need to have some sense of knowledge about Lovecraft coming into this movie.
Not so much. You do need to be able to look outside of your own beliefs. And
I
normally I wouldn't argue that point.
That's fair.
No, so this is one that if you try to pigeonhole it into that kind of viewpoint, it's going to be something that it's not. And it does help to have that knowledge. But I also think, considering this came out in 1970, it was probably recorded during the late 60s,
60s.
that drugs may have also enhanced the viewing experience of this movie for the time period, as made evident by the ending scenes and flashing colors.
Yeah.
So
You're gonna tell me the Nancy's nightmares like you don't need drugs to watch, man. God, Nancy's nightmares are something else.
That's funny.
funny thing. So apparently, I read up some of the stuff on this movie, and it's one of the few times I actually did some research by accident for the podcast. Um, Apparently, during those scenes that she was in, when they showed her in the black outfit and like you could see like her hip and leg and stuff, they had a completely separate private set to shoot those scenes. So it was essentially just her and a cameraman and a director, and that was it.
All right.
Yeah.
See, see, that makes no sense to me because like it's gonna be private for that moment, but you're literally immortalizing a portion of your naked, vulnerable self to film. Like this movie is over 60 years old and we're still talking about it.
At least I found an old one, really old one.
It's not the oldest we've covered, so
Well, that's because you brought Frankenstein. I brought the original Wicker Man.
Never seen
Yeah.
that. Not the original one.
the original one,
That is
highly
an
recommend it.
experience.
Is that the black? That's black and white, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, the original Wicker
No,
Man.
No,
no.
I thought it was, yeah, I thought it was
No,
black and white.
it's
No?
Christopher Lee.
Christopher
Oh,
Lee.
Um,
okay. Okay.
It's a
it's
musical.
kind
Oh
of,
gosh. A musical?
kind of. It's Midsummer before Midsummer was even thought about, and
Mhm.
some musical numbers.
All right.
It's
Well, yeah.
some off the wall little island in like Ireland or something like that, Scotland or Ireland, one or the other. It's a crazy movie. There's multiple cuts of the movie, and apparently Arrow or somebody else is releasing a Blu-ray set. What?
It's
Wow.
50 years this year. So
It's
I'm saying
50 years old.
50. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This year's the
Nice.
50th year.
Yeah, they're doing a 50th anniversary release, and it's got like 3 or 4 cuts of the movie.
Oh gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
like
have to
Arrow
get it.
stuff. I haven't ordered anything from Arrow in a while. They haven't really had anything great, but I like their sturdier cases and their reversible
Yes.
the
Uh,
reversible slips and the booklets that they get when you get the special edition stuff.
yeah, if you like some kind of out there original like horrors and stuff, the original Wicker Man is pretty trippy.
Yeah, I have to
Um,
check that. Definitely have to check that out.
but
But,
where were we,
I
Josh?
I wanted more because you guys were talking about kind of like the mythos of it and all that. I thought that there would be a little bit more in regards to like the Whitley family in the town. And I know they talked about it and why they hated him and all that, but I thought maybe there was going to be a little more on that. And especially with the funeral scene, it was just kind of like, oh no, you don't get to bury your granddad. Get the hell out of here. I was like, wait, what? Like, what was that?
Yeah,
It's been a while since I read the story, or well, when I listened to the audio of it, but they dealt a lot more with the mystery of the Dunwich horror itself, and Wilbur was kind of deformed as well.
Oh, okay.
But the Dunwich horror they talked about, you couldn't see it or know where it was, but there was always the smell of death when it was present. Um,
it,
which I do wish they could have done something with in this. It would have made it a little bit more interesting because you don't really see it. It's hinted that something's behind a door in a couple
Right.
scenes, but through the original story, they talk about there's something behind the door. Like they have like a walkway up to the balcony to that they lead like horses to or something like that. They essentially lead things for the Dunwich Horror to kill up to it, things like that. But they
yeah,
left a lot of that out, and I think it has to do with the time period and the way they tried to translate it for the time.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
like,
I wondered. Yeah, I just wondered if they because I wondered. All right, is this an actual monster, an actual like physical monster, or is this some kind of metaphor for something, or is it just a evil presence? I didn't know because I was like, well, wait a minute, it's got to be a monster, just kind of the way they were showing the first kill of it and all that. But then I started to wonder, well, and really towards at the end when it got like all those town people that were coming after it, I was like, well, wait a minute, man, is this just a presence that's messing with their minds and killing them that way, or is this an actual physical thing that's doing
thank
stuff?
you.
No,
I didn't know.
it is a physical creature that was
Okay,
actually the twin sibling of Wilbur.
okay.
So when they talked about when the doctor talked about going to the house after the mother gave birth at the beginning of the movie, he was lucky to save her. She had gone insane, but she had been torn to pieces. It was because she
Right,
gave birth to two siblings,
right.
Wilbur and the Dunwich Horror.
Right. Yeah,
I
yeah. It just
I know too.
kind of threw me off at towards the end there because I was like, okay, we got a monster here, but all right, what kind of monster is just kind of stopped by a regular door? It's just a lock because she didn't do much to open that door, and it was like, well, I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, like,
My weakness is
And
closed doors.
it wrecked shop on that house too. So
Right. Yeah, tore the whole house up. So
they
I was just kind of like, that was kind of off.
don't they also talk about it at some point where like uh that they announced that like she gave birth to two boys. I feel like that's not
Yeah.
new news, but it's just something that's kind of like glossed over in like the grand scheme of like the actual like mystery of the Dunwich horror.
Yeah, because they said it at the beginning, but then they say, "Oh, well, there was one stillborn and the other son." And then when they went to the place to go see her, they talked about it a little bit there, like right before she died. But like you said, yeah, they didn't. They kind of gloss over the actual the monster son. They just kind of he's like gloss over the whole movie. It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
That
initially the reason why they talk about one of the sons was stillborn was because it's the Dunwich horror.
Right, right, right.
Um, and but I think he also mentions that he never actually saw the body.
Yeah, right, right. The doctor, yeah, he
yeah.
did say that. Yeah.
I I'm right here
Is
with
this
like
is this a case where I know more about the story is why it makes more sense to
look,
me?
look. A Yes, because A, you've read the source material, you've read a couple production notes, and B, neither myself nor Miggs had actually ever heard of this movie before we decided to do a podcast on it.
No, no clue. Yeah.
This might be like the biggest deep cut we've done in our like 70 some episodes.
But was it bad?
It it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Like it's not the worst
Yeah.
movie we've covered, but it's probably not the best movie. It's far from the best either. So
So go on YouTube, find like the audio book and listen to it while you're driving around. Then come back and rewatch the movie and see if it makes more sense.
Okay. Yeah, I could check that out. I mean, I got it for the most part. I was just kind of, like I said, I wanted a little more from the monster side of it, and then kind of the explanation with that town because I felt like that funeral scene could have been really, really good if it was a little bit longer, maybe a little bit developed more, or that kind of, maybe that kind
yes.
of turned in something, maybe that kind of turned into a lynch mob thing with the town or something, just to give the movie a little bit more spice, a little bit more adversity with that, because you had the crazy guy at the gas station that kind of hinted a little bit when he seen the dude, like, oh, get this guy out of here. And then he said, well, the townspeople, they hate me. They hung my great great granddad, this, that, and the third. So I was like, okay, we got something with this. And then that funeral comes around, and it was just kind of like, all right, 2 minutes, and then dang, end scene. All right, yeah, get out of here. You can't bury your granddad. Get out of here.
But
Oh, okay.
like
Well,
not
I think
not
go ahead.
I was gonna say not having that context either, like kind of just makes it look like it's just almost like a scene of prejudice. If you took it out of context, like you would just be like, all right, this guy clearly Wilbur is a guy that is hated because he has a different belief system, which is like completely different than the kind of our introduction to his character. But like seeing it like just in that context, like I wanted to know more about Dunwich and the Whitleys. Like I wanted to know kind of why they were like the outcast. Like they hinted at it, and maybe it's just like a a symptom of like today's media where like we have this tendency to like over explain everything because like every character needs a backstory and a prequel and everything has got to be explained away. Like, you know, Michael Myers is terrifying, more terrifying, not having a backstory and not knowing why he's a deranged serial killer. But like I felt like in this case, like I definitely wanted a more like thorough explanation of like they hate the Whitleys. There's not like a really like justifiable reason that you're given as the audience.
Right,
Well,
right. It's like, oh, they hung him because he believed different. He was a good man, and they're assholes. It's like, okay. Like, dang, did he do something? What did he do? He could have just said, "Hey, I don't believe you guys. I want to. I don't know. Maybe he tried to explain to them, and then they were like, which? I
I mean,
don't know.
I think it suffers from the fact that it's been what, maybe the last 10, 20 years, everybody over analyzes movies looking for plot holes and consistencies and inconsistencies. Where back in the day, people watched a movie for entertainment and didn't really question certain things like, really, how does a creature multiply by being dropped in water when it needs water to survive? Um, and
Hey, don't bring Mogwai logic into this.
so I think that's part of the issue is it suffers from applying today's standards and logic on something that's 50 years old.
Also, like, I'm also curious about this because like this comes out right the cinema like the cinematic version of this comes out right at like the tail end of like the sexual revolution. And there
Yeah.
are a conversation that like Nancy and Wilbur have in here that are like they're kind of embracing the sexual revolution to where like she's explaining the dreams to him and he's like, "Oh, this kind of sounds sexual to me." And then in Tommy Wiseau fashion, he's just like, "How do you feel about sex?" And it's this conversation that like comes back and forth and I'm like, I'm curious if like that's like actually like a product of his time because like Wilbur is very charismatic. He's very like you know, he he's just a guy that like can pull that Flynn Rider card out of his hat at any point and do like the smolder and like ladies cream their pants, maybe even some guys. Um,
That's hilarious.
but like I am just curious, like is this if he's like deformed in the original source material, is like does he have that like does that sexual element still exist?
No, not that I remember. Because
Yeah, 'cause that's
he always walked around in a trench coat. And it was because he was like Tentacle Boy from like the chest down.
is that a metaphor?
Also,
No, no,
In a
he
trench
was
coat, tentacle. Oh man, don't tell me he was a
well,
flasher in the book. What is that all about?
it talks about in the book that he was super intelligent from birth and grew at an extremely fast rate at like the age of a toddler. He was almost like a teenager, things like
So
that.
it is a metaphor. Okay.
So
I
but
get
but
it.
where the sibling ended up being the horror, he didn't end up being quite as far out there. He could still roughly pass for human, if I'm remembering the story correctly, because there's a lot of very weird Lovecraft stories.
there is. And like
Yeah.
one of the things that I also think in this one too is like this is an era where like James Bond was like just box office money.
Oh yeah.
And
Was it James Bond based off the life of Christopher Lee?
yes, so James Bond was, but the reason I bring James Bond up was because like Sean Connery in his right during this time was a sex symbol. So it makes more sense to like have someone like Dean Stockwell where like, you know, was a sex symbol in his own right. I mean, there are the way that like the camera angles would like fixate on like his eyes or like the way that he would interact with like ladies and like even the way that he interacts with like Armitage, like there is a lot of charisma here. And so from a business standpoint, it makes more sense to kind of like ground the more fantastical elements of Lovecraft to pursue kind of like a womanizer, essentially, like especially at the height of the sexual revolution.
Yeah, if you
Well,
look at his look too, that was kind of, you got the curly hair, like you say, you got the porn stash. That was kind of like the 70s thing. Guys, you definitely gotta have that strong stash. I mean, you didn't have to, but that was kind of like a marker there, that porn stash that you talk about. And then, like you said, some of those I noticed a lot of the shots with him when he was talking, they would kind of fixate like on his eyes, and then he would kind of like, and when he's talking to the women, he would kind of have that little glare or whatever. So it was like, okay, they're trying to make this guy alluring to the women so he could do whatever he's gonna do to him. So I get it. I thought some of that stuff was kind of funny, but yeah, I
Like
get it.
even when he's like trying to like like operate in the power of like the Whitley or like the supernatural. Like it's just very like he has his like fists essentially like pressed to his forehead again, like facing out towards the camera.
Yeah.
Um, so like even that like is like, all right, this just feels like practical. So some of it could have been like just a budgetary things, but like also like I'm like I think some of it has to do with some of the this sexual stuff that was happening at the time of its release and production.
Yeah, there's definitely some boobs in that movie and those psychedelic shots. Yeah, when the friend finds the monster, I was like, dude, what is this? Like, okay, all right. I was like, is that a boob? Oh yeah, it was. Okay, yeah. Oh, she's naked. Oh, all right. What do
Yeah.
we? What's this guy doing here?
That's the point where I texted Mark and I was like, I do believe this is an A24 film.
Nah, look, if this was an A24 film, we would have got full-fledged tentacles.
You're
Because oh
not
my
wrong.
gosh, A24 likes their peen shots. Oh my goodness. I mean, I ain't mad at it. I get it. I think it's funny seeing that reversal now to where like 80s and especially 80s, 70s, 80s movies, definitely women nudity, boobs. You might even get some front shots, whatever. But you always had the boobs. But now starting to see okay, just dudes now just bearing it all. Like, dang, okay. I mean, you've seen
Well,
some of that in some movies, but you didn't really see like a lot of that in certain things. But A24 definitely does not shy away from it.
they don't. This is a fun fact real quick. It used to be like this for a while. I think it's kind of loosened up, but Ewan McGregor did a full frontal shot for an indie movie years ago.
Mm.
And he said in the movie that the reason that like the MPAA gave him for the movie being rated NC-17 during its first cut was because he was full frontal. So the reason that they gave him is that anytime that a male is full frontal, it is an NC-17, and anytime a woman, it's an R rating. I don't understand why like
Right.
boobs and a butch and vagina like why those are more appropriate than schlong and testicles, but
Because
I think it started like
who
slow up.
doesn't like seeing some nice boobs? I mean,
Yeah, and then plus normally with the women, even if you get the front shot, it's not, because it's, just because of how a woman is, you might just see the patch. You're not seeing, it's not like a porno where you're seeing the whole thing. I mean, with a guy, you got it. We ain't got no inside nothing. It's just there. You got the whole package just bam, like right there in your face. Did you guys see it's gosh, what's the there was the A24 film about the stripper that went to Florida and she went on that crazy trip and I can't remember the
Oh,
name.
you are talking about Zola.
Zola, yes. Oh, yeah, that one right
what?
there. Because some of the other horror movies got the full frontal, but that Zola, wow, that whole little segment with the dudes and it was just bam, like close up, like oh my god, like whoa. that was
I'm
that was
not familiar with that one.
Yeah, that was scary. You want to talk about horror? You watch that one. Okay, imagine seeing that in a theater, and I'm talking up close and personal, just strong. All right,
Yeah, I saw that
several
in the
different sizes and colors and shapes, and just even some just real gross looking ones. Like, ugh.
yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
a dick ain't nothing to look at, but woo. Yeah, check that one out when you get a chance. It's not a horror movie, but it's definitely an A24 film.
It's not
yes,
horror, but
very
it's
much.
Yeah,
horrifying.
Yes,
yeah,
very much. It's a very uncomfortable experience, I will say that.
yeah. That's
So
I mean that's a wild movie. I love the movie, but that one scene when they were showing that right there, I was just like, oh, okay.
It's just it's for me what I kind of did it in was like just the awkward tension as the movie kind of went on. Like
Yeah.
Zola was like a character that like didn't want to be in this situation and like it just kept getting deeper and deeper for her and I was like, come on girl, get out, please.
Yeah,
Uh
that was wild. That was wild. That's all I'll say about that one.
well, back to the movie.
Yeah, I had another question about this because like the grandfather, anytime you see him, he is always carrying that like staff slash cane. Do they? I don't actually remember them ever actually like explaining that purpose. Is that expanded upon in the book, Mark?
That I don't remember, but with a lot of Lovecraft stuff, there's a lot of um symbols, ancient
Because I was
symbols and runes and things like that. And I think that's all it is a symbol of was it Nug-Shoggoth? I think they kept calling.
Yeah. See, I was
okay.
thinking maybe it was a family crest because if in the house that same symbol is on the floor there, like a bigger
Yeah.
version of that the symbol that he was carrying around with the on the stick. It's on the floor there, and they kind of were like kept showing that when they were in the house. So I said maybe it's a crest or maybe it's something that's part of their ritual. I don't know why he was carrying it. They didn't really say that, but
Well, I mean, when you look at it, the family's been involved with this cult, so to speak, for a very long time. So it's
right, right.
very possible that it's just a very a family crest. I don't remember that portion. I do know, however, that apparently the next installment after Color Out of Space they're talking about is supposed to be a remake of Dunwich-Horror by the guy that did Color Out of Space.
Richard Stanley. Yeah, he talked about that, which we will be covering later this month on a crossover with That's High Praise.
Right.
Uh Richard Stanley does a really great job, and he has wanted to make a Lovecraft trilogy.
Yeah.
Um, I think he even really wants to. I think he said in an interview that he also wanted to do it with Nicolas Cage, who was fantastic in that movie. Um,
Yeah,
but
his Nicolas
Nicolas
Cage's
Cage,
brand of crazy fits well with the Color Out of Space.
he also like Nicolas Cage is kind of blown up since they made that first film. Again with like Renfield, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Like he's still doing like
Oh
great
yeah, good
indie
stuff.
stuff, but
Yeah.
like also at the same time, like yeah, he's he's doing a lot more. Like I think he's got like 12 projects in development right now.
Well, the whole
Jeez.
So
thing, his whole deal started was because he owed a bunch of taxes. So he was just doing everything he had to do to pay the taxes.
Right, right.
He was doing anything and everything, whether it was good or bad, to get
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
debt.
this dude was cranking them out. I kind of felt like him and I don't know if Bruce Willis was in that same tax situation, but Bruce Willis has been cranking them out too, whether they're good, bad, or whatever. Because I go through Walmart and I see this guy on like those like straight to DVDs. I've seen him like on at least six of them in there at the same time. And I'm like, geez, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's going on with you? I wasn't a big fan of the outer, what was it, Color Out of Space though. I saw that. That one didn't land for me. I'm more of a,
It's
and I don't know if I don't know if this is a, because Color Out of Space is like a Lovecraft film, right?
it is,
yes,
yeah.
I don't know
It's
if
another
is
one.
Mandy's not a Lovecraft film, is it? Mandy's just a crazy ass movie, right?
yes,
Or is
no,
that a Lovecraft film?
Mandy is
I
just
don't think
a
Mandy
crazy
is
movie.
Lovecraft. I
No.
think it's just
Okay, okay.
bizarre.
Okay.
No,
Because I didn't know if those were kind of connected, but yeah, color out of color the color in space didn't do much for me. I saw that in Baltimore, and I was just I thought some parts were interesting, but when it was over with, I was just kind of like, okay,
Because Dunwich Horror coming back. I would love to see a Dunwich Horror remake done in Stanley style. I think he would do a fantastic job with it. But um, I think this film speaks. I think this film, in terms of like a mental health aspect, speaks really volumes about the weight of legacy and like just the kind of you know the ups and down battles that come with that and the expectations that come with that because I mean and when you boil down a lot of Wilbur's character arc throughout the course of the movie like he's essentially trying to fulfill this task that his family is kind of placed upon him.
yeah, I kind of saw it as more obsession than legacy. Um, I guess maybe partially because I knew more of the backstory than you did. Um, Wilbur felt like it was his job and was doing anything he needed to do, more so out of obsession to bring about the elder god, but more so than legacy.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
Yeah, I could see both because he's talking about bringing his father was trying or his grandfather was trying to do this. He wanted to do it because his grandfather failed, but I think he was obsessive over the Necronomicon. So speaking of that, are we going to talk about his fight with the security guard over that book? Because that was hilarious.
I forgot about that.
God, put that book down.
And there just happens to be a suit of armor there with like a pole arm.
Man, look, that security guard was whooping his ass at first. And then, so what I thought was going to happen, I thought he was going to grab the spear and throw it. I was like, okay, the guard didn't see him, so he's gonna throw it, and the guy's not even gonna know it's coming. No, he looked over at him and then runs right through the pole. I was like, dude, like he didn't even kill you. Like you killed yourself. Like Wilbur didn't kill you. Like you just ran right into it. You didn't even try to you didn't sidestep or nothing. You were just like, oh shit, he's got a pole. All right, I'm gonna die. I was like, what was that? I'm like, dude, you were whooping his ass, and he just okay. I guess he I guess he figured it was over then.
But outside of Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, how many good fight scenes did we get from the 70s and 60s?
Hey, look, blaxploitation movies got great fight scenes. They're so good you can tell when the stunt person is there, and they look totally different from the actor or the actress. That's hilarious too. But yeah, I wanted a little more with the book. Also, they kind of gave us a little bit with the book. They didn't really go into it as much. I thought there would be a little more with that, but I would like to see a remake with this, with today's effects, especially if they're gonna have the monster in it, kind of see how that is, or maybe they could tackle it from a different angle. Because like you said, I like the aspect of his family's been ingrained in this town trying to do this. I personally would like to see a little bit more of that, or maybe it's touched on more of the book or something like that. But I think a remake could, hit that a little more, be a little more thorough, maybe even give us a backstory with it. I don't know.
Well, the idea right now, like also too, like cinema has like changed, just completely changed from where it was in 1970 when this originally released to where we are now. Like because you have underground, like there's an underground movement of independent films that are more accessible now than ever before in history because you have streaming. I mean, I've so many friends that stream um like upload their movies directly to Tubi, and people can like watch them for free. And you got to sit through a couple ads, but I mean, like you're getting to see movies that like you would never see like otherwise, like Alter on YouTube is another great channel that was bringing like high quality uh short films to an audience completely for free. And like some of the shorts that and some of the films that you're gonna find on streaming platforms, like we brought up Mandy and Color Out of Space, both are like beautiful films, but very, very weird. And so I think that you have like an audience now that is a little bit more open-minded to the idea and the concept of wanting to pursue unique, um, you know, weird Lovecraft movies. Um,
And
and
when you get into the subject of Lovecraft in general, you're gonna have weird movies because they're
yes,
all weird.
yeah,
I'm a
and
fan. I like the weird and the obscure stuff. I mean, you know, and some things are even the horrible stuff because I can appreciate the craft behind it or the fact that okay, yeah, this might not be great as compared to some things, or it might just be downright horrible. But somebody put something into this, whether it's good or bad, and I that part I can appreciate. I mean, because there's a lot of I've scrolled through Tubi's, their catalog and seen some of their stuff. It's just like, what the heck is this? But I
well,
can
Tubi's
appreciate that people have platforms to put their stuff on.
and
yeah,
Tubi has a surprisingly good found footage catalog.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Tubi and like Pluto, because I watched the Dunwich on Pluto. So Tubi and like Pluto and what was it? Freevee, some of those free ones. I mean, you got to deal with the ads, and the ads are sometimes in weird, obscure places as part of the movie, right in the middle of a sentence, as an ad might come on. But besides that, yeah, they got those free movie apps got some solid flicks and some solid catalogs on there, and even like some of that that weird obscure stuff that you wouldn't see on like a big streaming service or something like that. They've got them, so it's like that's cool. I like that.
I think too, like, we live in the like I don't think we would have been able to do an episode like Bad Movie Showdown, which we did a couple episodes ago,
That
talking
was
about
fantastic.
Velocipaster, the Llamageddon, and Sharknado. Like, you don't do movies like those on like Netflix or like Hoopla or Hulu
Yeah.
or Disney. Like, nah, you go to like I streamed all of those movies on like on free services. Um,
Right, right.
and so you need those kind of things.
You reminded me. I have to watch Crack Coon. I know somebody that's in that movie. I think that
We'll
one's
save
on
it.
YouTube.
We'll save it
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
our
yeah.
next
Say
one.
that one. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's awesomely bad. But
Yeah,
but yeah,
there's one on Tubi called was it the Astral Woods, I think it's called. I'm acquaintances with one of the people that was involved in that movie.
oh,
So
nice, nice. Speaking of remakes, when I looked up the Dunwich Horror, something else came up. It was like back to the Dunwich Horror. You guys seen that? It was something that came out like in 2008 or in 2009, something like that.
I haven't I tend to be picky and choosy with Lovecraft movies because they can either be turned into borderline porn somehow every time or boring or good.
Yeah.
It's like there's no in between. You either have good, which this one falls in. It's not great, but it falls in the better half.
Hmm.
Or I did one. Was it the Witching House? I checked out a while back, and for some odd reason, they decide to like throw in girl on girl action for no apparent reason. And
Yeah,
it's
you
like
gotta love those.
I don't remember that in the book, but
Yeah.
okay.
Right. Has nothing to do with
And
nothing.
yeah, and a lot of it is you end up with a lot of very stale acting and a lot of these Lovecraft interpretations because my understanding is a lot of them are extremely difficult to script and actually produce as a major picture because
Well,
of how they're written and the way they're presented in the original material.
not only that, we talked about this last episode, but like he switches different narrators
perspectives.
perspectives so easily in that. And like um one of my favorite comic books of all time is Watchmen. And I love Alan Moore to death, but like he specifically, when he would write comics, he always would write them so complicated, so complex that they had to stay in the medium of comic books. Like that was his entire goal. And so when like I don't know, like the actual like movie version of Watchmen was in development from like 1989 after the success of Batman until 2009. So it literally went through several directors. Terry Gilliam was attached to direct it at one point, before Snyder actually got a hold of it. So it's like
Well,
it's
Snyder got a hold of it because of his success with 300.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like what I'm saying is like there are distinctive like voices in medium that like are creating like these very complex stories in their medium with the intention for it to stay in that medium.
Yeah, and Alan Moore, though, even with The Watchmen, he came out and said he even used color palettes that were different than other comic books in an attempt to try to make an unproducible story to film. He didn't want it
Oh,
to go to film.
it was deemed unfilmable for like years. They had like close to like I think like half a dozen like directors attached to it at one point, like different screenwriters. So like I think they did okay for what they did. I thought the HBO series is like 10 times better, but um Dunwich Horror, uh real quick, just kind of going back to yeah, the mental health aspect. One of the things that I think is interesting that both of you guys said like the perspective of like this film being a film about legacy is, I think that sometimes there are legacy, like there are things that like parents pass down to children that children really gravitate towards, really love, and become really passionate about it. And I think that's the route that you see here with Wilbur. Like I think that like he does observe obsession for this like legacy role really well, and the Necronomicon. But then you have like other kids that are like, no, I don't really want anything to do with this. And so you have like this whole entire like journey where it's like now you feel like a failure, and like the Black sheep of your family. Like I feel like I'm speaking that from like personal experience and like just trying to like vent my own journey onto this. Uh because I've definitely had a lot of those conversations, but like I don't know, Wilbur definitely kind of seemed like he was the opposite, to where like he really did want the legacy. And like maybe it was like in this like snarky way of being like, I'm gonna prove that I'm better than my grandfather, but it definitely kind of came across like he wanted to be a guy that really embraced the idea and the concept of fulfilling this legacy that had been like almost like a gaping hole in his family's history.
Yeah, he was definitely determined. I will definitely give him that because I think those the conversations with and I forget what her name was in the movie, but you could see that in some of his conversations where I'm going to do this. I'm not going to fail. I know these different people are different universes out there. My grandfather was right. Blah blah blah. These people don't know what they're talking about, and it didn't even really. And here's what kind of threw me off. And besides the whole ritual thing, and him having to kidnap and drug a girl and do that kind of stuff and people dying and all that, but it kind of seemed like what he was trying to do, not just ritual or religious or whatever, but kind of almost had some science going on in there too, kind of scientific kind of deal. They didn't really, it's a horror movie. They didn't really speak to that aspect, but to me, there's some science behind that.
I think from that aspect, you start getting into pseudoscience and was it parapsychology, parascience?
Right, yeah, and the supernatural stuff, yeah, yeah, those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Which
I mean,
actually there are people that make their living with parapsychology and research of the supernatural and paranormal. Can you prove
hey,
it? No.
the
But
Ghostbusters did it. Why not?
you got Zach Bagans making a fortune out in Vegas, being
Yeah.
the ghost bro.
Oh
So
gosh, I don't even want to know the Ghost Bro.
he
uh,
so he had a show on Ghost called Ghost Adventures on I think Travel Channel. And if you ever get a chance to watch it, he's a bro. He's a
it
bro and a
Okay.
half.
is it is now streaming on Max, so you can check it
Uh-oh.
out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's a total bro.
but as Mix said, if you guys haven't heard of this movie, The Dunwich-horror, it is streaming on Pluto TV for you guys, free with some ads. It's definitely worth checking out. Like I definitely didn't walk away from this movie being like, man, like I hate this movie. I thought it was a solid like little film. So it's
Well,
definitely a bizarre one to say the least.
yeah.
Uh, but who knows? Maybe this is like the weirdest one we cover this month. Um,
No, I don't think so. Not if
I
we're
don't think
not
so
if we're
either.
covering more Lovecraft.
Yeah, if you're doing more Lovecraft from what I read, because I read I read a little bit of stuff on because I'm not well versed on Lovecraft. And, I don't. I'd have to actually check to see if I have any of his movies in my library because I don't. I might have some that were kind of based on it, or maybe but I don't think like direct HP Lovecraft stuff. I do have the Lovecraft County series, the one that was on HBO that Majors did.
Yes.
I haven't watched
I
it yet.
Yeah.
It's still wrapped up. I'm gonna watch it. I've heard it was good. I haven't got to it yet, but
I
I am gonna
wanted
watch it.
I wanted to like it. I
Uh
really did want to like
oh.
it.
Uh
But with a lot of stuff that has come out over the last 5 or 6 years, they took something that could have been really good and threw a lot of social justice commentary into it.
oh. Okay.
And that's kind
Yeah.
of what ruined it for me. And
Okay.
Josh
So
is grinning
yeah,
because
I've
he knows
seen.
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen they kind of changed some stuff that way. So like I said, I'm not familiar with any of it. I I bought it because I it was a steel book and it caught my eye. I'm a sucker for steel books and it was cheap and people were kept telling me that was a series I needed to watch, so I bought it. It was only like $15. So
That's
So
amazing.
it's, in all fairness, though, it is a decent series. That was my only issue, is that they threw some social justice commentary in it that just kind of like, dude, really, I just wanted to watch some Lovecraft junk. But the thing
But
with but the thing with Lovecraft is he was early in his life a fairly well documented racist.
which
Um,
yeah, which I'm fascinated by because like the book that series is based on is written from an African American woman, I believe.
yeah,
right.
So
but
all of that stuff is canon within the book. So
but
they're going off of the actual like source material for that series.
mm, he did later in his life come back and essentially say I was wrong for it. The short
That I
version.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm trying to, there's a big documentary on Prime. I gotta find the name of it. Talks about Lovecraft and his influence on horror and movies. Guillermo del Toro is one of the people that's involved with the documentary. And they talk about it, and they talk about later in his life, close to the end of his life, he essentially admitted he was wrong. But
interesting.
it came more from a standpoint point of view of things he was taught in ignorance than a point of they're different than me, I hate them. Or at least that's how I understood the way it explained. But
Interesting.
it doesn't excuse it. But
It does
still.
not. So
Yeah, I read
Join
some stuff
us.
about him. So yeah, it was interesting to read a little bit about him and the history of things and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna like I said, I'm that's a series that I have to get to, but I've seen a little bit, and it basically kind of said, well, they've taken the horrors of a Lovecraft story and the kind of some of the scary stuff out of that and kind of applied it to all right, this is the it's like a metaphor for a real world situation that people experience. So I'm interested to see it. So I'll get back to y'all on that one.
See, I am curious to see it because I started it, and to me, I just like time got away from me, so I never finished it. But Watchmen was almost the exact like same like approach to where they um kind of address like race war. It's a great series if you guys haven't seen it. Both are streaming on Max right now. Max needs to sponsor this episode, so slide into our
HBO.
DMs.
I
Well,
know,
I
right?
think
HBO Max, where you been at, huh? We've been watching HBO since we were kids, man. Hook us up.
I think Lovecraft Country was also one of Michael Kenneth Williams' last productions before he OD'd.
Yep.
Oh man,
Rest
yeah,
in
wow.
peace.
Okay, wow, goodness
I
gracious, yeah.
I have a hard
He's
time not
great in
seeing
that
him as
series.
I have a hard time not seeing him as Chalky White from Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that
Well,
was crazy. Like just learning about him passing was like, geez, man, that guy was doing some stuff. But yeah,
yeah.
that Watchmen too. I got to get to that. I have that too. I just haven't took the plastic off of that one either. I actually found that whole series at Big Lots for like $5.
Oh, see, I have like the special limited edition steelbook. I pre-ordered it.
Nice.
I watched Watchmen 3 times at like in the span of like a month.
The series?
The series I've watched it 3 times, and
Jeez.
I've seen it total probably front to back 5 or 6 times.
Oh my gosh. Is it? But it was a mini series, right? It was only like 7 or 8 episodes.
It was
Yeah.
9 episodes,
Nine
and
episodes. Okay. Okay.
I still cannot get through the very end of the series finale to that without crying.
Oh wow.
Like,
Oh,
like
I'm gonna have to get up on this, man. Look.
every time, like
I
Regina
didn't
King and
I'll have
Yahya Abdul Mateen II, great performances, 100%,
I'll have to
so
rewatch
good.
it because I don't remember anything being that emotional in that series.
Yeah, I'm interested now. You say you're just shedding tears, man. You got
Look,
me you got me
look,
interested.
Mark, if you want to know like what part, so I don't spoil anything for Migs, because it's a huge spoiler where I like start tearing up. I get you, but I think we are rambling on this one. So join us next week for more Lovecraft love and random facts that Mark will be providing for us. But Migs, where can people find you online?
So I am on Movies with Migs. You can catch me on Facebook and also Instagram. Facebook's the main page where all the big stuff goes down, but I post stuff and reviews on Instagram also. I'm working on a couple things. I might bring the YouTube page back. I don't know. We'll see. But yep. So for right now, Facebook and Instagram, hit me up if you love movies. Come check me out. I'm a cinephile, like they said. I appreciate any movie lover that likes to discuss films. If you're interested, come on through. Like I said, I do giveaways, host all kind of stuff, try to make it fun, interactive. And like I said, I'm a big movie buff, so come check me out. And I appreciate y'all having me on your podcast. Love the discussion, and thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Mark, where can we find you online?
You just want to make fun of me, don't you?
I don't. This is the tradition that we plug and we show our stuff, even if you don't have anything new.
So, okay. I've got my Instagram for painting miniatures and stuff like that. I've got my office settled in. I'm trying to find my paintbrushes so I can get back to work. I think they're in another box over here in the corner after moving, but I'm hoping to get some work done this week and get something posted again finally because I haven't painted in months. Titanium Juggernaut Painting on Instagram.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't have anything new, go follow him and look at his old stuff. You guys can follow me. I'm a fellow cinephile, much like Migs. You guys can follow me on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. You guys can find Abyss Gazing wherever you guys get your podcasts from. You can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and wherever you guys get your podcasts from. Click the links in the show notes below. And until next time, remember, the longer you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.